ever met an Uber driver who actually owns their own car? One of our guests this evening has decided to, well, after making his name overseas, he felt something was missing and he returned to South Africa. This is Tonight. I'm Bruce Whitfield, and tonight I speak to Gilbert Pooley, who is the founder of Ke Ya Rona, and why he decided to come home, and also to one of the guys he's helping out, a guy called Vincent Plaakie. Vincent, you are the first Uber driver I've ever met who actually owns their own car. That's a miracle.
Sure.
Why is it unusual? Why is it unusual for Uber drivers to own their own cars?
Well, it's not easy or possible for anyone to start an Uber business. Well, I was very fortunate enough, which I'm still grateful, to Gilbert Pooley here and Ke Ya Rona. Basically, trying to find your own car to start your own business is not that as easy as getting a job with Uber.
Okay, all right, now that begins to explain it, because one of the biggest encumbrances, of course, one of the biggest hindrances so many wannabe entrepreneurs face, Gilbert, and this is something that you've spied a gap in the market on, is access to finance. And everyone talks about access to finance. The banks will tell you, of course they'll lend him money. It's an asset, there's an asset in the background. Of course they'll lend him money, except they'll do it at microfinance rates, right?
Yes, Bruce, if you're lucky. But many Uber drivers can't even secure that. So South African banks are very active in vehicle finance, but the lending criteria, typically you need a salary and a reliable income. And drivers get paid on a variable basis. So some months it's up, some months it's down. And it's very difficult to show the banks exactly what they want to see. Salary slips proving a certain level of income on a monthly basis. So despite so many Uber drivers wanting desperately to own their own vehicle, and despite really strong and stable cash flows from most of them, they're just not able to access the funding. So what we've done is we've developed a lease-to-buy agreement with the drivers, where we give them the vehicle, and we have a revenue sharing agreement with them, where they pay us 30% of what they own, or a minimum fee. And after 3 to 5 years, they own the vehicle. And we believe that this is really helping South African entrepreneurs get onto the road and to start building their own businesses.
You're creating your own microfinance operation, because you're not only funding the Uber taxis, of course, you're funding other minibus taxis as well, and you see an opportunity on the rest of the African continent. I thought companies like SA Taxi, for example, had that market sewn up completely.
Well, they do. So SA Taxi is very big and active in the market, and some of the banks also lend to this space. But the interest rates that they charge are very, very high. And they'll tell you that there's all sorts of risks associated with lending to a minibus taxi owner and operator. But the reality is that they're charging at the very upper end of what the National Credit Act will allow them to lend at. So it's 25 to 30%. And as a result, there's a lot of bad debt sitting on their book, and they've got a lot of churn with their taxi lending. So very many of the taxi drivers who set out as these aspirational owners of a vehicle, after a few months they cannot make the payments, and the vehicle's repossessed. SA Taxi has developed a whole side of their business which is quite profitable, actually, which is refurbishing these vehicles, yes, and selling them on back to a new lender. So they're living and thriving on this environment, but I don't think it's ultimately the most friendly to the entrepreneur. What they really need is lower costs of lending, so that entrepreneurs can have a more stable business, and we can have more successful taxi owners on the road. The current system really favors those who are already established, and it makes it very, very difficult for new people to break into the market.
Vincent, how difficult was it for you to get funding? I'm sure you knocked on every single door until you stumbled over Gilbert.
Sure, that's true. You know, the vetting process through the banks, it's maybe most of us, we don't have, like, maybe we have lost incomes and stuff, basically due to retrenchment, and one is blacklisted and stuff. So you actually find yourself striving to get up and, you know, challenge banks and stuff. So the vetting criteria for one to qualify, it's very tough.
Okay, but the vetting criteria, now that's interesting, because the bankers will tell you we're the masters of risk. We nearly destroyed the world in 2008. Ignore that for a moment. Yes. We're the masters of risk. We understand our customers. We got FICA, RICA, DICA, and everything else. We know our customers. We can see their credit. We can see their credit records. We can see their history. We can judge who is reliable and who is not. What do you do differently to them that enables you to, one, help finance the vehicles, to make a return?
So Bruce, what traditional banks miss is they look at groups of people in aggregate. They don't look at the individual's performance. Unless you've got a very long-term relationship with a bank or you're dealing with a private bank where they really look at you as an individual. But most retail banks, they just assess your risk. They're like, this is your income level, this is your history, you fall roughly into this group, we'll lend you or not. What we do at Ke Ya Rona is we take a data-driven approach. And because Uber is such a data-rich environment, we can get the login details of any Uber driver who wants to work with us. We can go onto their account and we can download all of their trip information.
You can see how effective they are.
We can see every single trip
how good
ever
a driver
driven.
they are.
So every single trip with the amount of time it took, with the money that they earned, and we can calculate their average week, their average month for that particular driver. So before we accepted Vincent and our other drivers, we looked at a large number of applicants and we chose only the best drivers that we could already see were performing well enough to pay back the loan. So that mitigates our risk a lot. We treat individuals and we develop a loan product for the individual based on their risk profile.
So you're using science rather than instinct.
Exactly, and I think that the banks could easily move in this direction. I mean, they could look at more at individuals, but they're just not set up for that. The way that loan decisions are made in banks is quite old-fashioned, and there's a very specific profile that they're looking to fill to make a loan. And I hope that so initiatives like ours spark I suppose more individual treatment at banks, so that people who are generating good streams of income are able to finance vehicles themselves.
Because, you know, I don't want to undersell you here at all, Vincent, because you're not just an Uber driver. Yes, you've been an Uber driver for some time, you are in that market, but you're building up, slowly but surely, a fleet of vehicles and running different kinds of businesses.
Sure.
Tell me about this.
Well, I've got, I can say now I am exposed to many opportunities. For example, as an owner now, basically I do contracts with a few hotels, and then I do the door-to-doors arrangements and stuff. So now what I'm doing now is I'm developing my own office space from home, where I will actually be working through operations, you know, like to make sure everything runs smoothly and stuff.
How many vehicles are you running?
Well, I'm running 4 vehicles.
So you're employing 3 other people now?
Yes, that's true.
I mean, but again, there's 4 people who are now gainfully employed that,
true.
had you depended on the banks, wouldn't be employed. Well, not by you anyway. I mean, that's a nice story.
And another opportunity is that once those people performs well, Ke Ya Rona can still help them out, you know, to finance them to start their own businesses. So it's not like one is working for a loss or one is working maybe to empower somebody else while they are not benefiting.
No, absolutely. I mean, it's exactly the sort of success story we need in South Africa. If one person could help 3 other people and get on to get on a track where you could build up a track record and then come and get the money to set up your own business and help the next 3, that's kind of a recipe for success, I would think. But the trouble is, it feels quite small. How many people have you helped so far?
So we've only got 6 vehicles in our fleet at the moment, and one of the reasons for that is it's all been entirely on my own risk so far. So I've been financing this pilot and borrowing money from one of the major retail banks to do it.
So we shouldn't be too horrible about the banks then, because I might just say, no, Gilbert, you were nasty to us, and now you can't have the money.
But I do get questions from them now. They're like, what do you really need a 7th car for, Gilbert? Like, you've really gotten to the limit here. So we're in a funny space. Another failure of you know, the current retail lending environment is that we've been around for about a year, but we don't have the scale or the track record right now to qualify for fleet financing.
And the venture capital guys not interested? You're still too small?
Well, we're interested in starting those conversations. So this is why we're interested in chatting to you, Bruce, and getting some exposure at the moment.
Because I'm so lovely. Yes, but anyway, that's just me.
But I see the future for us being either venture capital or development finance. My interest is to get access to the lowest cost of capital possible, because that allows us to make the most affordable loans to drivers like Vincent, to allow them to buy their own vehicles and start their businesses.
I mean, the world is changing and changing really quickly. There's been a big blowout in bond markets in the last week or so, which you would have noticed, and the cost of capital is about to start rising worldwide. Your business is about to become a bit tougher to run.
That's true. I think What we have been able to achieve is we've been able to wash our face so far and turn a modest operating profit on the small number of vehicles that we have.
And it's not only about the Ubers and the taxis. I mean, I've met the guys from Drop, and they've got a fantastic business of local deliveries.
Yeah.
Now, again, the ideal candidate for a Drop driver is somebody like Vincent, who's hungry or is keen, doesn't mind working 18 hours a day because he's tough.
But let me give you the example, Bruce, of Drop, because we work with Drop, and Simon and Roy have become friends and supporters of Ke Ya Rona through the process. So one of their drivers was earning about 2,900 Rand a month of salary for driving and working really long hours. And you can imagine him on the road in the Cape Town winter in the rain, really suffering for a very modest amount of money. And although a delivery motorcycle will only cost you around 17 to 25,000 Rand.
You need the 17 to 25,000 Rand in the first place.
He was never going to get there with his 2,900 Rand a month. I mean, he struggles to pay his rent and his basic expenses with that. But through Ke Ya Rona's financing, because it's a relatively small asset and because it's generating a good revenue stream, we could put a deal together for him where within 18 months he can pay off this vehicle and he can still earn above that 2,900 Rand that he takes home every month. So obviously he's exposed. It's a risky business. It depends on how many deliveries he does. But typically he can be earning at least 3,500 to 4,000 Rand and making the repayments on the vehicle, so that in 18 months' time his salary will almost triple because the vehicle is paid off.
Well, may this grow at a far more dramatic rate. Venture capitalists, you need to meet a man called Gilbert Pooley. He's the founder of Ke Ya Rona, and also Vincent Plaakie, who is one of the people who has participated in a very successful program that has got him literally on the road. Thanks for watching. There'll be more tonight, tomorrow. Till then, good night and goodbye.